The storm pressed against the old town like a restless hand, rattling windows and carrying whispers through the empty streets. Nathan's phone lit up, breaking the silence with a trembling voice on the other end. "They know where you are," the voice whispered, the static swallowing the rest. Nathan froze, his breath catching as the night erupted with a scream so sharp it sliced the air. He sprinted to his porch, searching, but the streets were deserted. His eyes darted wildly, and then he saw it. A strange object lying on the soaked ground, glinting beneath the flickering streetlight. He knelt, fingers brushing the surface of a small fragment carved with symbols that defied understanding. Fear gnawed at him, but curiosity pulled stronger, his pulse quickening as thunder rolled overhead. "What is this?" he muttered, though the night gave no answer. The symbols seemed to pulse faintly, as though alive, as though watching. In that moment, Nathan understood something had shifted, and nothing would ever feel ordinary again. Nathan sat inside his dim living room, the fragment resting on the table like a living presence. His hands shook as he replayed the voicemail, each word unraveling his calm. The storm outside pressed against the glass, as though eager to enter. "It can't be real," Nathan whispered, though the echo of the scream still gnawed at him. Shadows bent unnaturally in corners, the lamplight flickered, and every sound became suspect. He reached for the fragment again, staring at its strange glow, unable to resist its pull. Fear whispered to leave it alone, but something deeper urged him on, something dark and compelling. The knock at the door startled Nathan, sharp against the rain. He opened it to find Claire, a friend who often carried secrets she never explained. "You found it," she said in a low voice, her eyes fixed on the fragment. Nathan demanded, "What do you mean?" Claire stepped inside, dripping rain onto the floor. "I told you never to touch anything marked like that," she whispered. Fear deepened in her face as she added, "It should have stayed buried." Nathan felt his heart twist. "What do you know, Claire?" Her silence spoke more than her words, her eyes filled with dread. The following morning, Nathan walked through town and froze. Strange symbols had appeared on brick walls and shop shutters, glowing faintly beneath the rising sun. Children whispered nervously, their parents pulling them away. Nathan reached out toward one of the carvings, tracing its edge without touching. The marks burned with the same energy as the fragment. A cold shiver ran through him, dread pooling in his chest. He muttered, "It's spreading." The air grew heavy, a silence hanging unnaturally. No birds sang. The ordinary streets now carried the weight of a presence, ancient and watchful. Later that day, screams echoed again, this time near the river. Nathan and others rushed there, only to find Samuel, a kind shopkeeper, lying lifeless on the wet ground. His face was twisted in terror, his hands clawed as though warding something off. The crowd gasped, stepping back in horror, whispers breaking out like wildfire. Nathan knelt beside Samuel, trembling, the same symbols carved faintly into the man's skin. "No," Nathan whispered, his voice cracking. Fear gripped the crowd, a collective realization dawning. The curse had claimed its first victim, and it was far from finished. Nathan barely slept, haunted by Samuel's lifeless face and the strange runes carved on his skin. That night he dreamed of walls dripping with symbols, each one glowing like firebrands. He woke drenched in sweat, heart racing, the fragment still glowing faintly on his desk. His reflection in the darkened window seemed not his own, the outline blurred and shifting. He staggered to the bathroom whispering, "Get out of my head." But when he splashed water onto his face, the ripples revealed faint shadows moving behind him. The air felt heavy, and each breath carried dread. He feared the curse was no longer outside, but inside his very mind. The following evening, Nathan encountered a man leaning against the broken fence near his house. His coat was dark, hat shadowing his face, yet his presence demanded attention. "You've touched it," the stranger said quietly, his voice steady but cold. Nathan stiffened, asking, "Who are you?" The man's lips curled faintly, neither smile nor sneer. Names are useless. What matters is that you have awakened something meant to sleep. Nathan's chest tightened, anger mixing with fear. If you know something, tell me. The stranger's eyes glimmered with secrets and silence, and he simply replied, "You'll learn soon enough." Then he vanished into the rain. The town itself seemed to revolt. Dogs barked relentlessly at nothing, their howls carrying into the night. Birds abandoned the rooftops, leaving eerie silence behind. Radios crackled with voices speaking languages no one understood. Televisions flickered with static even when unplugged. Nathan walked the streets, his every step echoing louder than it should, as though the ground itself recognized him. People whispered behind locked doors, staring through curtains with terrified eyes. The ordinary rhythm of life collapsed, and dread spread like fog. Nathan whispered to himself, "It's not just me, the whole town feels it." His words only deepened the chill. Claire appeared again, unannounced, her face pale and strained. She gripped Nathan's arm with trembling hands. "I told you this wasn't just about you," she whispered. Her eyes darted nervously toward the fragment on his desk. Nathan demanded, "What do you know?" She swallowed hard, lowering her voice. "I saw these symbols when I was a child. My father found something in the fields, and within weeks he was dead. The same glow, the same silence in the air." Nathan's pulse thundered in his ears. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Her voice broke. "Because if I spoke it, it would return." Nathan stood in the center of his room, the fragment resting in his palm, its glow stronger than before. His resolve hardened as dread coiled within him. "This won't stop until I find where it came from," he muttered. The storm outside seemed to agree, thunder cracking like applause. Claire stared at him horrified. "You'll lose yourself chasing it," she warned. But Nathan shook his head, determination etched into his face. "If it's cursed, I'll break it. If it's ancient, I'll uncover it. But I won't sit here and wait for death." The room trembled as lightning split the sky. Nathan pushed open the heavy doors of the town museum, their hinges groaning in protest. Dust floated in beams of pale light, casting the exhibits in a ghostly glow. He moved carefully between glass cases, searching for clues that could match the strange fragment in his pocket. Ancient pottery, broken idols, and brittle scrolls lined the walls, but none carried the same dread. His footsteps echoed like whispers, stirring unease in the silence. "There has to be something," he muttered, scanning every display. A carved plaque caught his eye, its inscription faded but eerily similar to the runes. His heart raced as realization gripped him. This curse was recorded long before he was born. From the corner of the hall, a voice broke the silence. A man stepped out, his eyes glinting with eccentric fire. Harold, the museum's caretaker, looked worn but strangely animated. "You've found it, haven't you?" he said, his tone almost delighted. Nathan stiffened, clutching the fragment tighter. Harold moved closer, gesturing wildly at the plaque. "That symbol isn't decoration. It's a warning. The statue is built to hold something inside, not to honor it." Nathan demanded, "What do you mean hold something?" Harold chuckled bitterly. "When the stone breaks, the prison weakens." His words struck Nathan like a blow. Nathan left the caretaker with more dread than answers. Outside, Officer Reynolds approached, his uniform damp from drizzle, his face stern. "You shouldn't be digging into this," Reynolds said flatly. Nathan frowned, anger rising. "A man is dead, people are terrified, and you want me to ignore it?" Reynolds' jaw tightened. "There are things better left alone." His words felt rehearsed, heavy with hidden knowledge. Nathan pressed, "What aren't you telling me?" But Reynolds turned away, adjusting his cap, refusing to meet his eyes. That avoidance spoke louder than his warning, revealing a corruption rooted deeper than law. Later that evening, a scream rang out near the bakery. Nathan rushed to find Emily, a young bystander collapsed against the wall, shaking violently. Her eyes were wide, locked on symbols freshly carved into the brick beside her. They moved. she whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan knelt, trying to calm her, but her terror cut deep into him. The runes glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Neighbors gathered, whispering prayers, their fear echoing Emily's. Nathan stared at the symbols, realizing the curse wasn't limited to objects or relics. It had begun inscribing itself into the living world, branding everyone it touched. Nathan stumbled home, his thoughts spinning with fear and fury. He placed the fragment on the table, staring as its glow pulsed stronger than before. The pieces connected. The statue was never a monument. It was a cage, built to contain something dark and ancient. "It feeds on us," Nathan muttered, realization dawning with chilling clarity. His reflection in the glass shifted again, mocking him with hollow eyes. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy, Reynolds' silence, Harold's cryptic warnings, Claire's hidden past. All threads of a web he could no longer ignore. The curse wasn't simply returning. It was preparing to break free. Nathan sat in the darkened attic of the old church, the fragment glowing faintly in his palm. Across from him sat Marcus, a man with a reputation for being dangerous but knowledgeable about forbidden practices. Marcus leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You don't fight it with weapons," he muttered. "You fight it with words that bind." He produced a worn book filled with ritual diagrams, their edges burned as if touched by fire. Nathan's hand trembled as he traced the symbols. "This feels wrong," he whispered. Marcus smirked grimly. "It's the only way you'll survive." Thunder rattled the beams overhead. That night Nathan dreamed again, but this time the visions were sharper. He walked through endless corridors carved with glowing runes, their light pulsing like veins of fire. Whispering voices followed him, growing louder until they became screams. At the end of the hall stood the statue, taller than any building, its cracked face twisted in rage. The ground split beneath him, flames reaching for his feet. He jolted awake, gasping, drenched in sweat. The fragment glowed hotter on the table, as though mocking him. He pressed his palms to his eyes and whispered, "It's inside me now." The following day Nathan met Claire near the outskirts of town. Her face was pale, eyes shifting nervously, as she clutched her coat tight. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not just the statue, it's whoever controls it." Her words cut through Nathan like a knife. "Who are you protecting?" he demanded. She shook her head violently, tears forming. "If I tell you, I'll be the next one dead." Anger surged through Nathan. "You knew all along." Her silence confirmed his suspicion. Trust began to fracture, and Nathan felt betrayal sink in deeper than fear ever could. That evening, Nathan returned home to find the mysterious stranger's hat lying on his porch. His pulse spiked as he searched the shadows, but the man was gone. On the brim of the hat was a note, written in jagged ink, "The cage is breaking." Nathan's chest tightened as he realized the stranger had vanished completely. Only the warning remained, heavy and unyielding. He clutched the note, scanning the dark street. The silence felt alive, pressing in from every angle. For the first time since it began, Nathan felt utterly alone. Even his guide had disappeared, leaving him in the storm. By midnight the town was awake to another scream. Nathan raced toward the square, finding another victim sprawled on the cobblestones. It was Martha, a gentle librarian known by all. Her body lay twisted unnaturally, glowing runes carved into her skin just like Samuel before her. The crowd gasped in horror, their fear now uncontainable. Nathan knelt, his breath ragged, fury mixing with despair. Claire pushed through the crowd, covering her mouth in shock. Nathan's voice broke as he whispered, "It's accelerating." The curse was no longer creeping. It was devouring, and the town was running out of time. Nathan returned to the museum, with the fragment clutched in his fist, his mind churning with Marcus's words. Harold waited by the shattered display case, his eyes wild with anticipation. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he asked. Nathan slammed the fragment down on the table. "Tell me the truth." Harold's hands trembled as he opened an ancient scroll, the parchment brittle with age. The statue wasn't meant to honor a god, Harold whispered. It was built to lock a demon beneath stone. Every fracture frees more of its rage. Nathan's blood chilled as he realized the curse wasn't random. It was the beginning of a release. Officer Reynolds entered without warning, his boots echoing on the stone floor. His eyes were hard, his tone sharp. "You don't know what you're doing," he growled. Nathan snapped. "You've known about this all along." Reynolds hesitated before replying. "My father was one of the first to touch that stone. He died screaming. I swore no one else would wake it." His voice cracked, a hint of guilt beneath his authority. Nathan's fists clenched. Then why hide the truth? Reynolds looked away, shame flooding his expression. Because sometimes silence feels safer than the truth. The confession revealed corruption rooted in fear. Back at his home, Nathan discovered he wasn't alone. A figure moved silently in the corner watching him. It was Thomas, the silent observer, a man whose presence unsettled without words. Nathan demanded, "Why are you here?" Thomas only stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the fragment. He reached into his pocket and placed a small carved piece of the statue beside Nathan's. They fit together perfectly, forming part of a larger whole. Nathan's breath hitched. "You've had this all along." Thomas's silence was louder than any answer, his expression one of warning rather than guilt. The truth unraveled with cruel precision. Claire arrived suddenly, her face pale, her hands shaking. Nathan stepped forward, anger and fear colliding. "You knew from the beginning." She looked away, tears streaking her face. "I tried to stop it," she whispered. "But I needed it too. My brother's death wasn't random. The statue took him. I thought if I kept it close I could control it." Nathan's fury broke. "You lied to me." Claire's shoulders trembled as she whispered, "I'm sorry." But in her apology lay a confession. She had been complicit all along. Trust shattered in the flicker of lamplight. Nathan sat heavily in the chair, the room filled with silence heavier than the storm outside. The fragment glowed brighter than ever, the combined pieces radiating a pulse that shook the walls. He whispered, "If this is a cage, then I have to close it before it breaks." Claire's voice wavered. "You don't know what it will cost you." Nathan looked at her, determination replacing despair. "I'd rather lose myself than let this consume us all." The weight of the decision pressed upon him. He knew the path forward would demand sacrifice, and it might be more than his life. The abandoned church loomed like a broken sentinel, its windows shattered and its roof caved in. Nathan stepped inside, the fragments bound together in his hands, glowing with unnatural light. The pews were overturned, dust hanging heavy in the air. He set the fragments on the altar, his voice shaking as he repeated the words Marcus had taught him. The runes flared, filling the church with blinding fire. Claire cried out from the doorway, "You don't know what you're releasing." Nathan grit his teeth, whispering, "I know exactly what I'm facing." The walls shuddered, as though the building itself breathed. The ritual ignited chaos. Marcus burst through the side door, his coat torn, eyes blazing with frenzy. "Stop this," he shouted, drawing a crude blade etched with runes. Claire gasped, realizing Marcus was not an ally, but a betrayer. Nathan raised his arms as the runes pulsed violently, wind tearing through the broken church windows. "You lied," Nathan growled, his voice swallowed by the storm. Marcus sneered, "I told you enough to lead you here. Now the statue's prison will break, and I'll command what's inside." His confession struck like lightning. Betrayal had finally revealed its true face. The church shook violently as Marcus advanced, his blade humming with energy. Nathan stepped forward, shielding the fragments with his body. Claire screamed, "Nathan, it will kill you!" Marcus slashed wildly, sparks flying as the blade struck the stone altar. The glow of the fragments surged, filling the air with a low, resonant hum. Nathan's voice rose in defiance, chanting the words Marcus had tried to twist. The runes etched into the walls flared, burning bright red. Marcus snarled, "You can't bind it, you're only feeding it." Nathan's blood pounded in his ears as the battle for control began. The fragments fused fully, their glow bursting outward in a blinding wave. The statue's image appeared above the altar, not solid but spectral, its cracked face roaring in silence. Nathan collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest as the curse clawed at his heart. Marcus reached toward the phantom with both hands, desperate to command it. Claire rushed forward, grabbing Nathan's arm. "You can't let him finish it," she begged. Summoning his last strength, Nathan whispered the binding words, forcing his voice through the pain. The phantom shrieked, the church rafters splintering under the weight of its rage. The final moment erupted in chaos. Marcus lunged for the fragments, his blade raised high. Nathan thrust the stones together, shouting the final word of the binding ritual. A deafening explosion of light consumed the church, tearing through wood and stone. Marcus screamed, his body flung against the wall, his blade shattered into dust. Claire shielded her eyes as the phantom statue dissolved in a torrent of fire and smoke. Nathan collapsed onto the altar, gasping, his body trembling with exhaustion. The curse had been forced back. But the silence that followed was not victory, it was the calm of something waiting. The ruined church stood in silence, its shattered beams groaning under the weight of smoke and ash. Nathan lay sprawled near the altar, his chest rising weakly, the fragments now dark in his blood-stained hands. Claire knelt beside him, her voice trembling. "It's over," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed doubt. Outside, the storm finally subsided, the rain fading into a hollow quiet. But within that silence lingered a suffocating heaviness, as though the battle had only pressed pause. Nathan's gaze drifted toward the rafters, where shadows seemed to move of their own accord. He muttered, "It's not gone." Hours later, Nathan limped through the town square with Claire supporting him. The townsfolk gathered cautiously, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. Broken windows and scattered debris marked the aftermath, but no one celebrated. An old man whispered, "It feels heavier now, not lighter." Nathan's eyes scanned the crowd, noticing the runes faintly etched into the stones beneath their feet. He swallowed hard. The curse had not ended, it had spread. Claire's grip on his arm tightened, her silence mirroring his dread. Nathan whispered under his breath, "We stopped nothing, only delayed it." By dusk, Nathan visited Emily, the young bystander still shaken by the symbols. She sat in her small home, rocking in silence, her eyes locked on walls covered with faint, glowing marks. She whispered, "It speaks to me when it's quiet." Nathan felt a chill coil through him. The curse had marked her, embedding itself in the innocent. Claire whispered, "We can't protect everyone." Nathan clenched his fists, fury burning in his eyes. "Then we fight until there's nothing left to fight." Yet even as he said it, he knew the battle had already slipped beyond human control. That night, Nathan stood by the river where Samuel had died. The water moved slowly under a pale moon, its reflection fractured by ripples. Claire joined him, her voice quiet. "You can't carry this forever." Nathan's jaw tightened, his reflection in the water distorting into something monstrous for a brief moment. He whispered, "Maybe I don't have a choice." A cold wind blew, scattering leaves across the surface. The silence pressed deeper, and Nathan realized the statue's shadow had simply shifted. Its prison wasn't broken, but it was restless. The thought made his chest ache with dread. In the final hours before dawn, Nathan returned to his home. He placed the fragments inside a locked chest, burying it beneath the floorboards. As he covered it, he whispered, "Sleep, if only for a while." Claire stood in the doorway, her face etched with fear and sorrow. The house grew unnervingly still, the silence too sharp. From beneath the floor, faint scratching echoed, like stone grinding against stone. Nathan froze, his breath caught. Claire whispered, "You hear it too." His eyes darkened as he replied, "It's waiting." The curse had not ended. It had only begun.